All right, algebra, I'm going to now work with you on this next problem. I'm going to go ahead and clear these notations. I don't like them. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to work on example B on this too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure y'all know I'm not working on this one right now. We already worked on this one in the last video. I only want to work on this one. So we're going to go ahead and set it up. It wants to know, is x plus 4 a factor, meaning does it go into it perfectly? Does it go into it perfectly of this polynomial down here? And a polynomial is just a term for equations or strings of variables. So like x cubed, x squared, etc. So it's just that what we call like math sentences, essentially. And so now I'm going to see if this can go into it. I have an x cubed. I have a plus 3x squared. I have a minus 6x. And I have a minus 7. So now I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to go through one at a time. I'm going to switch to, I'll do purple. I'm going to do this one at a time. So now what I look at is I go to my first term, which is x, and I see this x cubed. I only have numbers in front, so I ask myself, how many times can x go into x cubed? And in this case, it's x squared. But look what I just did. I wrote down x squared. Do this 2 and 3 match? No, it's not the same component. So what you want to do is you make sure you write it over the right column. So then I have x squared, and now what happens is, here we go. We kind of have to do this process, this chain reaction. X squared times x to the 1 is x cubed. X squared times 4 is 4x squared. And now we've done everything we can up to this point, so now we stop real quick. And now what we do is we have to subtract this. So remember what happens. Whenever we subtract, what we do is we're basically going to change the sign. So this is a positive x, I'm going to change this to a negative. This is a positive, I'm going to now change this to a negative. And now we're ready for rock and roll. So I'm going to go ahead and change back to black for a second. So x cubed minus x cubed is 0. 3x squared minus 4x squared is negative x squared. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to pull down the remainder of the crap. So I have negative 6x that I'm going to pull down here. And then I have negative 7 that I'm going to pull down here. And then guess what? We're ready to rock and roll all over again. So now I'm going to look at this. I go to this term, which is x, my first leading term. And now my new leading term is negative x squared. So how many times can x go into negative x squared? Pay attention to this. It can go in negative x times. Make sure your columns are lined up. See, my x's are lined up. X's are lined up. X times x is x squared. Negative x times x is negative x squared. Ooh, don't make that mistake. One more time. Negative x times x is negative x squared. Negative x times 4 is negative 4x. But remember, we have to then subtract it. So when we subtract it, it means change the sign. So when I put my subtraction, what that means is change the signs. Then we can basically subtract and do this again. So I'm going to go ahead and change to ink, my black ink. Negative x squared plus x squared is 0. Negative 6x plus 4x is negative 2x. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull down this negative 7 as well. And I end up with, that's a terrible 2. I have an x goes into this negative 2 times. It goes in negative 2 times. Let me switch back to my purple. It goes in, I want that. There we go. It goes in negative 2 times. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. So here we go. This ends up now what I have to do is I have to add this in. What does that look like? I have to subtract it. So when I subtract, that means change the signs and then combine them all together. And so when I get that, what do I get? I get negative 2x plus 2x is 0. And then negative 7 plus 8 is actually 1. And then guess what? We're out of room up here. Once you're out of room up here, you're kind of done with the problem. So now we have to kind of put this all together. And this is very weird looking. So we're going to do this one at a time. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take the stuff on top. That's this right here, this stuff on top. And if you don't remember the name of what this was, let's go back to here. The stuff on top is called the quotient. It's called the quotient. So we're going to take the quotient and we're going to write it down here. X squared minus x minus 2. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out right here our dividend. Is it dividend or divider? Hold on, let me make sure I got that. Oh, our divisor, my bad. Our divisor. We get our divisor and we put it right here, x plus 4. And then, what are we looking at now? This is where it gets weird. We have a remainder. Now, I'm not going to make you type out remainder, all that stuff, but the remainder is a positive 1. So you add plus 1, but you have to save space for a fraction, because this is a little weird. If you have a remainder down here, you have to take this number 1 and then this one up here and shove it under. And this is the full answer to this problem right here. So it wants to know, is this a factor of each polynomial? If there is a remainder, the answer is no, it is not a factor. No, not a factor. No, not a factor. Because there is a remainder. This one up here we did earlier in the previous video, it was a factor because it did not have a remainder. So that's it, y'all. That's what we got. This is all I'm doing for these videos. I'm out of time, and pay attention in class. Then the best way to learn this is not watching me do this over and over, but putting your pen in your hand and doing it yourself. So that's it. Good luck.